Hello, everybody out there in the interwebs. We are Kids Are Talking, and we have a great show for you tonight. Kids are talking tonight about anxiety and depression. We have kids from all over the country. They've come together to tell their story and tell us all about how it's impacted their lives. So we're looking forward to it. If you're watching the show tonight, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune into new shows as they come in the coming weeks. And feel free to drop your comments in the chat on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, and we will try to adjust them on the show. The kids would love to hear what you have to say, and everybody loves to interact. So feel free to do that. So we'll get started in a couple of minutes. So we will see you soon. So hang tight, and Kids Are Talking.
All teenagers are going through really similar things right now because everything's crazy.
So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, author of 9 books, family therapist, expert on relationships, art collector, and a super awesome guy ready to have a great discussion about anxiety and depression, Dr. Don. Dr. Don, how are you doing today?
I think I need therapy. Just getting the show together, Mike, was really anxiety producing. We had our own mental health just to get this show together tonight. Everybody needs to know how hard it is to orchestrate a talk show with kids around mental health. This is our 9th show of the year, and this one was a challenge, but miraculously somehow it works out, Mike. I don't know how we do it, but we have 3 wonderful guests tonight to talk about a subject that we are way overdue to talk about. This is the biggest thing in the news right now. Now it's in the sports world, but it's been around the corner. And this show will be a kaleidoscope of the journey of the human existence that we're all confronting right now, because we've done shows on so many different subjects, but actually mental health will entail all of them. And the guests that are here tonight, you will see overlap because there's nothing more important than this show. We see what's going on in the Olympics with Simone Biles. We saw what happened with Naomi Osaka at the French Open. And the person we should not forget that I'm in some ways honoring this show is Kevin Love. Kevin Love was the first NBA player to come out with his mental health issues around anxiety and depression. As a matter of fact, he has a fund, the Kevin Love Fund. They're supporting mental health causes. And so thank you, Kevin Love, because when you came out in the NBA and said you couldn't play basketball because you had issues that are affecting you emotionally, you brought a new scope to the importance of this taboo subject that in the 1960s, nobody was even talking about. Nobody even knew what a psychiatrist was, except for me, because I had a father who was a psychiatrist. He was the great witch doctor of the community, and I couldn't do anything wrong because everything was going to be, I was the son of a psychiatrist. So the pressure was on for me to make sure that I didn't do anything wrong. Now, who isn't in therapy. The problem now is you can't get into an emergency room for mental health. You can't get a therapist appointment. And if you look at the statistics right now, suicide rate is up. Kids even younger than 5 are depressed. We are having more issues around mental health in this country than we've ever seen. And this was before COVID.
And the medical insurance industry is probably playing a role in
I'm
a
really-
lot of that too, right?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. This is my pitch to medical insurance companies. We have to up the ante with medical insurance companies because psychotherapy, people have either $5,000 deductibles, doesn't cover mental health insurance. It's disgraceful. And it's amazing to me how mental health has been discriminated against. The insurance companies need to get on it.
They pick, well, I find that the insurance companies pick the body apart, right? You have insurance for your body, insurance for your teeth, insurance for your mind. You know, why are these all, you're all one person, right? So it should all be covered.
And not seeing the connection between mind and body.
Exactly.
So hopefully we'll get that going and get people getting mental health coverage is something we need. Also, it came up in the Hookup Show, mental health in the schools. Where are the schools? Where are the mental health support systems in the schools in America? That's another problem. So as we can see, this show tonight, it's a two-parter. That's how important it is. We're doing it this week and we're doing it next week, is because we really need to start talking about mental health without stigmatizing it. It's something we all experience. We certainly saw it in the Olympics, and I'm sure we're going to talk about that. So why don't we introduce our guests, because we have 3 guests on tonight that are really have a lot to say, and we want to hear from them.
Sure. So let's just have a quick word from the sponsor, and we'll pop the guests on.
Kids Are Talking is sponsored by M&D Properties at Compass. Let this nationally award-winning real estate team help expertly guide you with all of your real estate needs.
Hello.
There you are. Well, hello, Leighton.
Hi.
Hello, Angel. Hello, Jasmine.
Hi.
This is a brave show to be on, and there's so many topics to begin with. So I think we'll just start off asking each one of you, why do you feel this is an important show to be on, and what you feel has gotten you to the place you are in your life at this point on the subject of mental health. We'll start with you, Leighton.
Well, I think that everybody's always going to be struggling with mental health, and it's one of the few things that can be affecting someone, yet nobody will know about it. It's behind closed doors. It's not necessarily obvious. And I think that a lot of students, a lot of children aren't really given the resources they need to be able to handle whatever mental health issues are arising. And as you said, things are just getting worse. So I think it's really important to try and spread the message and give people the resources they need to, better, whether it be better themselves or just get that, extra 5% of feeling secure in their person. And I've come a long way with mental health, and I would love to just share some of the things that I find, I learned throughout my journey.
You want to talk a little bit about that now?
Yeah, sure. That sounds great. So a lot of the problem that I think, or a lot of the issues with technology, because we're growing up in a completely new age, right? And children haven't really grown up with these iPhones, iPads, computers, smart boards, everything in their face all the time, and it creates this kind of sense of instant communication, instant gratification. Pick up your phone and you're on it, you're scrolling social media, or you're texting your friends, whatever it may be. And I think that a lot of the mental health issues that are arising in the younger population stem directly from the amount of technology that's being incorporated in our life. And one of the problems is that we're seeing that technology is becoming a necessity. It's not really a choice anymore. If you want to participate in the 21st century, you need an iPhone. You need a laptop. You have to go to school and use laptops. And I think that a lot of children haven't learned how to be secure by themselves. And what I mean by this is that, you know, a lot of the times when people are sitting at home, they're playing video games, or as I said, they're scrolling social media, watching TikToks, YouTube. And, you know, not a lot of parents are forcing their children to take the time to simply sit by themselves and be bored. You know, just be with themselves. And I think that people underestimate how important it is to kind of just sit with your thoughts, because you're never going to be able to really deal with things that arise and situations that arise if you're not, you know, content or happy or secure in your own body, you know, with your own mental health. So I just want to spread the message that it's really important to sometimes just take the time to sit and be bored, because it will help you become more secure in your person and be able to, you know, work through things a lot better.
I'm so glad you brought up the word bored. Boring has such a negative connotation. I think tonight what we're going to try to do is soul stretch being bored as a more positive thing. So thank you, Leighton. We'll probably talk more about that later on. Angel, you're our angel tonight because we almost didn't have a show tonight. And we got you on, and we had heard through the grapevine that this is a show you've been waiting to get on and talk and let everyone hear your story. So just give us a brief description now about what made this show so important for you, and where you feel you are in your journey in terms of dealing with this subject.
Well, this is such an important topic to me because I've been dealing with it for so long. And I've been wanting to share my story to tell kids that they're not alone and that they have people there that's gone through it too, and they have resources they can go to. So it's just an important topic all around, and I feel like we don't talk about it enough in like schools and in public places, that because you can't physically see what's going on, so people don't think it's there.
So in your journey, what do you think has been most important for you in terms of been helpful for you to be able to talk about this show tonight?
It's been really important to me having my family there and supportive. Because like having your family be supportive is one of the main things that really helps. I was going through so much, and just having my family there and them telling me that they're there for me, and that and just spending time with family, it helps a lot.
That's why you're Angel. That's really, you guys are hitting all the points very early on for me tonight that we're going to swing around and talk about. So yeah, family, boredom, social media, and now Jasmine, who I've been trying to get on the show for weeks, but I decided we saved you for this one because you are a collage and a kaleidoscope of all the things I was talking about in my introduction. So nice to have you, Jasmine. Finally get to meet you. And maybe you can just tell us a little bit of why you feel this is an important show to be on and where you are in your journey to get to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. I definitely could have been on the other shows too.
We'll learn about that later on tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, you know, mental health, wellness, psychological and emotional wellness is really important. And just in this past year, it's been really eye-opening to see how isolation can be so detrimental for people. And I think, you know, the more fear that we have, that's all anxiety is. It's a response to feeling like we're under threat, which is very human. So I think the more we talk about it, the more we can destigmatize that, you know, mental health wellness is really important, and everyone has different symptoms that come up with mental health issues. Everybody does. Everybody has anxiety. So whether you're able to talk about it or not, it's just, that's how we are able to survive. That's why we don't cross the street when a car is coming. So I think for me, this is an important topic. I work within a system that can be really disheartening to see how mental health isn't treated in a more holistic way. So I guess I can talk about that later, but I've gone through my own mental health struggles, especially as a teenager, and I'm happy to talk about that later as well.
That's going to be a really great thing to have you on for tonight to talk about what goes on behind the scenes with mental health, and we have so much to learn. So you're going to be a big help later on. So thanks. One of the things I want to say, there's one thing we all have to remember about mental health. The one thing that is important is for us to have control. I think you just hinted at it, Jasmine, to say, I think that when we are out of control is when we get anxious and we get isolated. And I think the one thing that I have found with mental health is the importance of taking control of your life, making the right choices for yourself. We can't control other people, but we can control how we respond to things around us and take control of our own life. Now, bringing up the family thing, Angel, was good because David Brooks, what's happening in the American family right now, New York Times article that David Brooks talked about is, look at all the hate and anger there is in America now. Over 29% of the American families are estranged from each other in terms of family members. There's something not good about that. I always say you have to look at the origins to understand some of where mental health comes from. But David Brooks talks about how if we look at all the hate and anger, look what's going on in politics now. It's like displaced, unresolved issues that people have in their families, and they're putting it elsewhere. Because the main event is we all want to feel like we belong, right? We don't want to feel lonely. We don't want to feel isolated. So when David Brooks talks about in his column, he talks about in the family structure, if you feel isolated and alone, you look to belong. And sometimes you look to belong in all the wrong places. So I'm curious to see what you think about that, Leighton.
Yeah, well, I mean, as Angel said, family is kind of, I'd say, a lot of it. It's one of the first things you think about when being happy. If you have a supportive family, if you have a family that supports you and your choices, it's a lot easier to be happy. But I also think it's important to talk about the side of not supportive families, because a lot of people aren't, as lucky as Angel or I am to have that supporting person, whether it be a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, and they might be asking themselves, well, what do I do now? Because as you said, it's really hard to find access to, mental health care, and it's a scary topic to begin with, so not a lot of people want to go into it. But I mean, for me personally, something that really helped me, and a lot of kids have a stigma against this, especially in middle school, but was actually the school guidance counselor. And I know that a lot of people, many of my friends, it's the guidance counselor. Oh no. But really, they're there to help, and they don't want to get you in trouble. They just want to make sure that you can, take your education and use it to the best of your potential. And if there are mental health issues in the way, they're going to do everything they can to resolve them. So I think it's always important to look to the people that are provided by, the administration or the government and stuff like that, because it is expensive, and, sometimes people don't have family members they can reach out to.
So what do you think the root is of anxiety and depression? Do you think that it's isolation, loneliness, social media?
I think it's a combination of a lot of those things. Well, to start with social media, and I'm sure most people listening to the show right now know this, but you're a teenager, maybe you feel like you don't fit in, or you don't have many friends, and you're scrolling through Instagram and you see these amazing pictures of kids at school on vacation, or at like a party or a get together, concert, whatever it may be. So as you're scrolling, you see all these perfect lives, all these perfect pictures of people doing the things you want to be doing, looking like they're having the most amazing time of their life. But, social media is not real life. So it's hard to tell your subconscious, these people might have posed for that picture. They might not actually be laughing like that, or they might not actually be having as much fun as they seem. Their life probably isn't perfect. But when you're scrolling from that perspective, and you're kind of a little upset, it's hard to get that in the back of your mind. And another thing that we talked about in the beginning is this whole process of instant gratification with TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, video games. So I think it's really a combination of social media and the instant gratification and communication that these devices provide. But more importantly, it's that these devices and this new technology makes it seem like everybody is living a perfect life. Like all your friends and everybody else is doing great.
The FOMA thing is big, but when you're bored, and how did the boredom in your life help you with your anxiety and depression? What is boredom?
Yeah, well, for a while, it's a great question. For a while, I didn't really feel like I fit in. I was having trouble making friends in middle school. And, you know, I would come home and I would sit in my room and I would really be bored. I would do my work, maybe play a video game or two. But at the end of the day, I was bored. But that boredom, you know, allowed me to look inside myself and realize that there's nothing wrong with me, that, you know, just because I'm having trouble finding friends or just because I don't think I'm being treated the way I should doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong. And a lot of people, if they're having trouble making friends or if they're in that situation, they find it very hard, or they just don't take the time to sit with themselves and be in that situation and really look inward. They just immediately assume something's wrong. Or if they're having bad emotions, they assume something's wrong with them. But in the end, everybody has mental health issues. And it's really just a matter of becoming content with yourself and realizing that you're okay and that you're going to make it through it. You know, you're going to make friends, you're going to find the right people, and things will get better. It just takes some time to really, you know, really understand that.
And it's okay to not be okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like that, Jasmine? Yeah. Right? All right,
Love
Jasmine.
that.
Go ahead, Jasmine. Go ahead. You look like you have some things you want to say about what we're just talking about.
Yeah, well, I love that because I think that, you know, just like Leighton was talking about with social media, how there are these fabricated lives, you know, it's not real. And I think the more we're able to be honest about how we really feel, I'm sure that everyone has felt really terrible this past year. Especially with the pandemic. So I think like the more honest that people can be about how they really are and feeling safe enough to talk about feeling terrible, not wanting to go outside, not wanting to see people out of fear. I mean, I think that ultimately the first step is to acknowledge the truth. And
So
yeah.
Boredom's okay with you?
If you're bored, you're bored, you know? I mean, you have to start somewhere, but why not start being honest with where you're at? I think that, yeah. And also, yeah, it just gets better and better the more and more you start to understand who you are as a person, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, like just like the more, I mean, when you're talking about belonging, that really does hit home for me. That's still something that I struggle with on a daily basis, where my desire to belong is so strong that sometimes it'll blindside me. And I'm like, wait a second, I'm like, I feel like an fully actualized person, but there's still these core wounds that will come up from a long time ago. And I think that's okay too. We're all human and we all go through, you can't swear on the show, but we all go through it.
You can do it if you want.
Oh, you can.
Go ahead. Nobody's watching us. No big brother that I know about.
Okay.
So
we all go through shit.
We all go through shit. It's okay to say we all go through shit. Let's all say we all go through shit.
We all go through shit.
How about control? How important is it to have control?
I mean, control isn't just an antidote to anxiety. When you feel out of control, you feel anxious. So for me, I mean, and that goes back to eating disorder stuff. That's all linked into control. Also, when I think about my own experiences with depression, sometimes that in a way is a coping mechanism to not have to be great, to not have to do my best, to not have to put myself out there. That shutting down, dissociating can be a coping mechanism. And that in a way can be a sense of control. Well, I'm going to decide not to do X, Y, and Z instead of putting myself out there and getting rejected.
So taking the risk is a way of getting past that or coping with that.
Yeah.
You're afraid.
Right.
And I don't know, is there a certain sense of control in being able to do that in a different kind of way? You're taking control of yourself and so making a decision to not wallow and to try and take risks and get out of that place, that depressed place. Would that be true for you?
Yeah, I guess there is a sense of surrender when you do that.
Like
But
that.
it can be very scary too.
And so when we're scared, when we're scared, what's a good thing to do when we're scared?
Um, I'm thinking for me, you know, it's helpful for me to identify things that are sources of comfort, whether that's listening to a song I love, whether it's calling a friend who I know I feel safe with to talk to, going on a walk, playing with an animal. I have a lot of animals in my house. It's an animal house for me, but that can really help kind of come back to the moment and realize, okay, a lot of times when we feel afraid, the fear is, you know, we are physiologically, it might be like a bear is in the room, but there isn't a bear in the room. So kind of taking a step back objectively and looking at yourself, saying like, okay, is this rational? I mean, I'm feeling these things, but do I really need to be afraid of this talk show right now? No, it's okay. But I felt anxious too.
Me too, and it's okay for us to feel anxious. This is a big deal to do this.
Yeah.
I get anxious before every show, and I'm anxious now, but I'm getting more relieved because I'm listening to you all talk about the same feelings that I have.
Yeah.
I feel less alone. Angel, what do you think about this conversation?
Well, I feel like everybody has different opinions, and for me, like for the bored part, when I would get bored, like I would start isolating, and then I would literally like shut down, and like my parents would have to come in my room and tell me like we would like my mom would like take me on a walk with the dog, and we would just like do stuff to keep my mind busy, because that's just what happened like for me. Like if I get bored and I start isolating, I just start shutting down, like I just don't want to do anything, and I'm just like out of it. And that's another reason why having my family supportive of me is like so nice, because when I shut down, they know how to cheer me up and they know how to cheer me up, and they know how to bring me up, and they know how to keep me busy and do stuff that I like.
So you get a lot of love from them. And how about boredom, being with yourself and being alone, and you find peace with yourself with that? When sometimes you just feel like, God, I got nothing going on. No, I don't have the technology. They're like, not let the social media suck you up. Then what do you do?
I just like I sometimes like if I get like overwhelmed with social media and that's all I like have, I like try to like take a break from it, because like so much stuff is going on social media that like it it's like there's so many opinions, and some people like lose control on social media and start fighting, and it can be a lot for like a kid's like mind and a teenage, like pretty much anybody, just thinking, because they're like it's so overwhelming.
Are you okay being alone with yourself? And if you don't have external things to distract you and you're just with yourself? We talked to Layton and Jasmine about this tonight. What do you do with that feeling? Just with you, just you with you, nothing else.
Yeah, I have a bunch of like coping mechanisms. Like I like to draw. I do a bunch of stuff that helps me like make sure like to keep my mind busy if like I'm alone and there's nothing else I could do. Like I like to do I like to like I have hobbies that I do to make sure that my mind doesn't go like crazy.
What are your hobbies? Creative, drawing?
Yeah, I like to draw, and I sometimes I like to sing just to. I'm not the best at it, but I do like to sing to like kind of get like my feelings out, and I sometimes write stories. Like I do a bunch of like creative stuff that I like to do.
Well, guess what? For all of you who are watching, you'd have no literature, you'd have no film, you'd have no art, you'd have no movies. You wouldn't be entertained if people didn't have to deal with anxiety and depression. So take the stigma away, because
What about
without
music?
and music, of
Music,
course,
music
of
without-
course, you can't have music, you can't have lyrics, you can't have creativity if you don't acknowledge that just being a human being can create anxiety and depression. So let's all try to embrace it as something that we can grow from. And as you say beautifully, Angel, be creative. And before we lose Leighton, I have to ask one question before we lose you, Leighton, because I know you have big things ahead of you trying to get into colleges, college tours, and all that exciting stuff for your future. Let's just talk about what happened with Simone Biles at the Olympics. I'm curious to know what you all thought. Let's start with you, Leighton, because Simone Biles, clearly, she lost her aunt, by the way, during the Olympics that people don't know. She had that that air sickness, whatever we call it, in the air. She was frightened in the air. She has ADD. She didn't have her family at the Olympics. She's in COVID like all of us. And she chose to say, I can't do this right now because I'm afraid of my personal safety, but I'm still going to hang in there with my Olympic friends. There were a lot of people that were against what she did, believe it or not. Some people resented that she was celebrated. You're all going to get a chance to talk about this. I know some very intelligent people that I respect that were actually feeling like, wow, I mean, why are we celebrating her mental health? Because I have employees that I have to support who say that they want to stay home from work and I have to pay them. And we had this on the ADHD show. Is it an excuse for people to cop out? There are people that actually think that, just like there are people that think we should not take a vaccine. Okay. So just before we lose you, Leighton, you get the first shot at this before we hear from Angel and Jess.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really important topic because as you said, there's not many instances of these, I guess you could say celebrities or pro athletes taking a step back because of their mental health, especially because of how stigmatized it is in our society. I personally believe that what she did is great because it puts the message out that, it's okay. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to say you're not ready or you're not feeling great or you're scared. And, this is one of the first examples, except for the basketball player you mentioned in the beginning, of, a 21st century really pro athlete coming out and talking about mental health. So I personally think that this is setting the stage for a great conversation and that she's really done something amazing because I'm sure it must have been really scary to say, I can't do this anymore. I'm not ready. Or I have some things going on that I'm not, that I haven't dealt with yet. So I just think personally that she did a great job and it's setting the stage for, this conversation we're having right now.
And Naomi Osaka also did that as well, right? She also did that as well. So
yeah,
the thing I would say is, and I'm going to get the two of you on this, I was blown away last night watching CNN about this guy who's dying on a ventilator from not being vaccinated. Now he wants everybody to get vaccinated. What do you quickly just tell us what you think of that?
Well, I mean, I am personally pro-vaccine to the fullest extent because, I get everybody wants to make their own choices, but, what it really boils down to is it's about protecting our entire population. And, I'm not saying that the vaccine is the most safe thing in the world, but what we do know is that it's a lot safer than potentially dying from the disease itself,
Yeah. Leighton, what is going on? Because I know you have to go. What is going on psychologically with that guy on his deathbed with a ventilator, now telling everybody to get vaccinated? What do you think is mentally, psychologically going on?
There's definitely a lot of regret, I would say. I mean, has to be a lot of regret. I almost feel bad for him. You know what I mean? Because he's lying there and he realizes that, I was wrong, right? He realizes that I should have gotten the vaccine. But I think that there's also a really good realization coming there. And I think, it's another great story. It's something that's going to help, change our country for the better. I don't personally, what were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say thank you. I know
Yeah. No, but I do think that, he was probably experiencing some form of regret. But I also think that he was probably happy to share his message. He was put in a very sad but unique position to really convince some of our
what drives that anxiety, that influence to not take control of something that clearly makes him safer and other people safe.
Yeah.
Want to get a last word on that?
I mean, I would say
just for a second.
What'd you say? Sorry.
I want to be a psychologist for a second before you say goodnight to us.
Well, I mean, I think that, so you're asking me what drives his anxiety of not getting the vaccine?
Yeah, what influenced him? What made him
Oh,
motivated?
well, you know, I mean, I think that he's seeing in the media, he's seeing all this sudden push for vaccines, right? He sees this huge, all of a sudden, it's everywhere. And he probably read some articles or some posts somewhere, sparking the notion in his mind that the vaccine might not be the safest thing. And what happens is once a seed of doubt is planted in your unconscious, there's certain things you can do that will stop it from growing, but there's other things you can do that will let it grow and expand, you know, into a tree. And I think probably what happened is once that seed of doubt was planted, he began to look into more, and I don't want to call it fake news, but it is. And that seed of doubt grew. So, I mean, I think that it's just always important to recognize when you're getting scared of something and really make sure you're looking at, you know, the correct information so you don't let that take over your entire mind, you know.
Thanks, Lee. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Catch your conversation later when you get a chance.
Definitely, yeah.
All right, so we'll say goodnight to Lee.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Jasmine, what do you think about what we're talking about with Simone Biles and pretty much what Layton's talking about? I have the same question for you and Angel, so I figured I'd ask you the same question.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's frustrating to hear that people would be angry about her decision because ultimately it just represents courage to me. And I think it's courageous to say, no, like I can't do this right now, even with all the pressures. It's interesting because, you know, my stepbrother, he was an Olympic mogul skier person. So you know, his whole friend group has had tremendous pressure. And it's interesting to see, you know, these careers are very short-lived. And then what happens, you know, then a lot of his friends didn't really know where to go after that. You can only be a gymnast for so long. You can only be a mogul skier for so long. But I think that she's courageous. And anyone that doesn't think that, I think should relook at the kind of pressure that she was under and recognize that it took a lot for her to say no.
So where is the judgment in these other people that we're talking about? Like, where is that anger coming from?
Well, I don't know, because I'm not really, you just mentioned that you knew people that had a strong reaction. To be quite honest, I can only handle so much of the news. Like, I'm not really that plugged in. Of course, I heard about this, and on my own social media page, I would say those that I follow are those that are in support of her, saying F off, like she can do what she wants. She's won enough things and she's done great. And it's amazing that she's able to set a boundary for herself.
Yeah, well, that just bring up the other side. It's just to show you what's going on in America right now and how we're so split on so many issues. And it is very disturbing. There were two particular men, by the way, who expressed that to me, both in the business world, both in middle age, and who knows? There's a lot of controversy and differences of opinions in this country right now. Just like, why would you not get vaccinated? But if you got anxiety and fear, right?
Yeah, and just to really quickly touch on that, because when I've seen even people I know choose not to get the vaccine, a lot of that comes from fear. A lot of the people that I talk to that aren't getting it are those that don't trust these entities. And I think it's really important as white people to understand that we're having a very different experience than those who are formerly incarcerated, people of color. There's been a long history of not trusting authority. So I think that it's important to take that with a grain of salt, and understand that we don't really get what someone like that is going through. And also, I've seen a lot of misinformation being thrown out on the internet that they're not valid sources, but just seeing these really, I don't know what the word is, high intensity memes about how you should be afraid, and the sources aren't really valid. But I don't think people are taught how to fact check.
You know, authority, by the way, this will go into you, Angel, because you talked about your family. I believe we have a problem with authority because we haven't had the proper authority. Where is the role model for having healthy authority? And it begins in the family, I think. Don't you think that having authority, learning how to listen and have somebody who really takes control and is able to really respect and look at all sides is a good role model? I think that's what I was saying earlier about the David Brooks article, is that this estrangement in family, a lot of people get vulnerable and susceptible to influence because in their own family they feel a sense of loneliness and lack of attention or lack of boundaries. They don't have the boundaries to learn what is the healthy way to think. Agree, not agree? You have anything to say about that? Did I lose you?
Angel, you still there?
Are you there, Jasmine?
Oh,
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Angel.
nothing to say. Okay, that's fine. Angel,
yeah.
what's your response to all this?
Well, with the Simone Biles thing, I don't understand why people would be upset because it's like people need to take a step back and be like, I need a break for a while. Like, even myself has had to take a step back from things I love because I just needed a break and to be and try to like experience other things, and like I still support them and support like my friends that I was doing it with, but I just need to step back to be like, all right, I need to like take a breath because I've had that because of me having so much pressure on me, and Simone has a bunch of pressure on her, and like she's won first place and gold medals in a bunch of things where like there's so much pressure on her to win more gold. So I think she just needed, and it's fine that she needed to take a step back and kind of like breathe and take a break for a little while to.
Sometimes when we don't do what other people want us to do, we get called quitters.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty unfair to be called. And then she got back on. She showed the resilience of coming back, right? So now we have a chance to hear your stories. Okay, we're going to go to you, Jasmine, because you've had a lot of experience in your life. You've been on a long journey. You've had a little bit of everything, right, in your life. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your journey, what you've learned, what other people can learn from you about what's really going on out there and what you've experienced in the whole area of mental health.
Yeah, I struggled with a pretty severe eating disorder and was hospitalized, in and out of the hospital. I ultimately, when I think about like what does it mean to have had an eating disorder? I think ultimately I just really did have a lot of anxiety and a lot of sadness, deep, deep sadness. I feel like I grew up really quickly and none of my peers, I thought no one understood. I just had a lot of anxiety at the end of middle school and beginning of high school. And I started to isolate myself and push everyone away. And that was the first mistake I made, but ultimately I learned a lot from it. I think that I started to act out also as a teenager once all of this, being in and out of the hospital, learning other ways to escape myself, I would say, which are other symptoms of that anxiety. Getting into substance abuse, running away from home. I did all of this early on, and it wasn't until I hit rock bottom that I started to slowly climb my way out of it. And when I think about those that I was surrounded by at that time in my life, it's really sad how many friends I've lost, like a lot, whether that's to drugs, suicide, random things that happen. I went to this school called Hyde, and I would say, you know, there are only 200 people in that school, but I think I know 10 people between the class above me, my class, and the class below me that passed away and not in 5 years. So it's very serious that if you're not able to have the support systems in place, that some people don't climb out of it. And I really do feel grateful also, like Angel, for my family, though initially I was the problem. I think they're able to recognize that within a family constellation, we all play a role. So if one person is acting out in the family, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're the problem, but I was acting out the trauma and the discomfort and the anger of both my parents. And in a way, it was luckily so, because then everything was able to come out, but it was a painful process. And it wasn't until my parents started to take responsibility for their role in the family constellation that I was able to really see, like, wow, okay, I'm not the problem. We all play our roles and we all can heal with each other. But but that's lucky, because a lot of parents won't take responsibility like that. So I feel really blessed in that regard.
And what did you learn about the mental health journey in terms of the places like the hospitals? You said something about a 50-51 or something we were talking. Was that what it's called? 50? I didn't know what that was. You mentioned.
Yeah, a 51, a 5150 is a 72-hour hold, at least in California. That's if you're a harm to yourself, a harm to others, or gravely disabled, you can be hospitalized. Yeah, so I would say that being hospitalized was really traumatic. And I think that it's really important, if there are any other avenues to take as a parent with your kids, that explore them, please, because going to the hospital just made things way worse for me.
Because
There was no healing happening in the hospital. That's when I learned how to do other bad things.
Really?
Yes.
Why was that? Why was it so?
Because no one was going to the hospital and healing. It was a very sterile environment. The nurses were assholes, no offense, but sorry for saying, but they were terrible. If I had I remember throwing a Cozy Shack pudding at a nurse's face because they pissed me off so badly, because they were almost good. It doesn't matter, but I just had so much anger and it wasn't really helpful. They weren't helpful. They would show us media and movies that were really triggering. And it was almost like, I don't know, it just felt like One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest or something. But
There's realness to Ken Kesey's writing.
yes. And it's crazy because after also working in a mental health facility, I can see how it's just, I don't know, it seems like, I don't know, I'm losing my train of thought, but I think that there is a lack of maybe it's a lack of resources or money, or maybe it's because our health insurance issue, but it doesn't seem like we really treat people holistically. We're only reacting on the symptoms. It's the same thing with an eating disorder. The food isn't the problem. What's beneath that? And there's not really enough time or money for people, and even in the medical world, to really look at root issues and the root causes. So you can become sober, you can maybe get your eating disorder under check, but then there's still that root issue that caused those symptoms to come up in the first place. And those aren't really being addressed. And I think that, I mean, I've been on so many psychotropic medications before they realized I had a thyroid problem.
Yeah. So
it's like crazy to me.
Where do we go now for these roots, to get to the roots of things? Where do you think is the best place to get help? You've been through so much, and look where you are now. You're obviously doing much better now, and you're even working in the mental health field now. Am I correct? So where do you go? How did you get there? Where do you go for the help? And you're really hurting. What helps you the most?
I think surrounding yourself with people that can that you feel safe around, that you're able to have these conversations with is important. And if you have a therapist that I believe that everyone can benefit from therapy, but finding a good therapist is the important part.
Where authority comes in, by the way. I have found, I am a therapist for 43 years. It's a fine line as a therapist and as a parent. When we talk about the issue of authority, where do you find the balance between tough love and empathy? Because I think you need to have somebody take a stand with you, but yet you also need to feel that that person's caring about you in a very empathetic way. It's a delicate balance, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And definitely when you're working with minors, right? But I think that, well, if you can take a step back, tough love can come from a place of empathy.
Exactly.
So they don't have to be too separate, but
Because enabling and self-indulging, which I always tell my patients that I think guilt is self-indulgence. If you perpetuate pathology by enabling and guilt-ridden messages, it's not really necessarily what the person needs.
right.
So hopefully you get that from your friends, your parents, therapists.
Right. And
So
I think, and also how Angel was talking about with creating, I think that there's nothing more healing than the creative process, especially when you're stuck in a rut.
You're a very
Because,
creative person. I happen to know that.
yeah, I mean, I think that, well, now I feel even more inspired after this speak to, but I think that if you're stuck in a rut, the creative process just automatically opens a new door, and you can just go on a journey and not know where you're headed, and you can get off that neural pathway of, self-hatred or whatever it is that you're reeling on, and just go somewhere new. And I think that the creative process is just so healing.
And you certainly have a mother that is out of the box and creative. I'm sure that was helpful too. And you even do things together sometimes and explore together, don't you?
Yeah, she's very artsy.
Artsy woman. I happen to know your mom, for everybody. She's a very, and so having a parent that can go the distance with you in that is a very positive thing.
Yeah,
So thank
definitely.
you, Mom. So Angel, what's your story? Listening to Jasmine's story, can you relate to some of the things she's saying?
Yeah, my mental health story started, well, initially it started when, like, in 2019 when I started getting help, but like it really stemmed back all the way when I was like 4. So
Four.
I went on a roller coaster of like trauma from like my parents' divorce to like the trauma from like trying to figure of the bullies. So I went through like a roller coaster of events that kind of just like all followed up to one big thing, and until I finally told somebody how I was actually feeling. And when I finally told somebody, I was hospitalized for a few days, and I mean, it helped for a little while, but then I ended up going to the hospital again a few more times within the next year. And like to this day, I still struggle with a bunch of things. I still have hiccups in the road my road to recovery. And I mean, everybody has hiccups. Like I struggled with an eating disorder for a little while. And to some extent, I'm thankful for that because I ended up passing out and finding out that I had blood sugar issues from that. So for some extent, I'm thankful, but like I've got recovered, but I also struggle with self-harm a lot, and I'm working on my road to recovery, and I finally like kind of got clean and sober from self-harm. And so I think it's just having your family there also really helps you, and make sure just tell them when something's wrong, because that's where I don't always do it, and that's where I always end up bursting out and having like a huge breakdown because I'm not telling them everything. I'm not telling my therapist everything. And then so I just like have learned that tell your parents everything, tell your therapist anything. Any adult that you trust, just let them know what's going on, and then it helps a lot.
Brave to ask
And
for help. It's brave to ask for help, right?
yeah, it took me a long time, and initially I didn't even tell an adult. I just told my friends, and it was my friends who actually like initially reached out to a school social worker, and she reached out to me, and then that's when I initially started getting the help. I had a therapist, but I wasn't telling her everything because I was still really guarded because she was such a new person in my life. So I was guarded for a long time, and even now the trauma towards like even now trauma that I have from my biological dad is so strong that it's even today that I'm still struggling with it. And so I mean, I helping and talking to somebody that I trust is really helpful, and having people there to care about you is really helpful when you're going through a hard time.
And you said you were really waiting to get on a show like this, which is interesting how we found you just at the nick of time. What you've been wanting to be on something like this and talk about it, you were saying?
Yeah, for a long time, cuz I that's how I figured out that I really needed help
Mm,
is someone came to my school, and because in my high school there was a couple suicides, and so and I was still in middle school, so this group came to my middle school and started talking about it, and so that's when I found out that I actually needed help, and that's when I realized that I need help and everything. So I always wanted to be on a show or go to schools and just share my story, and that you're not alone, and that there's people there that's gone through it too, and that there's people there that you can talk to.
yeah, we need more of that in the schools. You want to respond to Jasmine at all? I want each of you to have a chance. You've both been so amazing. If each of you have a chance to just respond to each other's story. You want to have any response to what Jasmine said tonight? Because it sounds like there's some overlap. Certainly, you at the hospitals probably didn't help you that much either. It sounds like, right?
Yeah, for there was a couple times in the hospital there where one specific hospital literally didn't care. All they cared was the mental health part,
Shame.
and I ended up punching a wall because of something my biological dad had told me, and they didn't give me an x-ray on my hand and for like over a day because they were more worried about why I did it and not caring about the actual physical injury itself. And my hand was like doubled in size because of the swelling, and it was just that hospital literally there were parts of it where we went where there's some hospitals where it brings trays of food up to the unit, and this one you went to down to the cafeteria, and so there were kids that actually brought up stuff that they would self-harm with on the unit. And so and it was just like there's been hospitals that actually helped me a little bit and from like just talking, but then there've also been some that just made it worse.
Is there anything you want to respond to that Jasmine said, or anything you want to say to Jasmine tonight?
Well, I agree with her with the control thing, that it's just when it's control is a huge thing when it like when you have like an eating disorder or so if you self-harm, because control is a big thing, and trying you have to make sure that you have to have enough control to not do it, and you have to make sure to control yourself to stay like healthy and clean, and make sure you're doing what you need to do, and that you don't go out of control, like when if you have so much stuff in your mind that you just can't handle it, that like you don't go out of control and just like yell at your parents or something. That control's a huge thing when you're talking mental health.
And the reason for that is,
It's really hard because if you don't have control, it's really hard to not like self-harm or to like stay healthy with regarding like the eating disorder, because if you don't have control with the self-harm, that you're just going to keep self-harming.
How do you get control, Angel?
Well, you can always like just like there's a bunch of alternatives that I like to use when it comes to self-harm, because like when you start using the alternatives and the longer you use the alternatives, it becomes easier to not have to use alternatives. You just where you don't have the feeling to do it at all. And so the alternatives have really helped me.
And the alternative what's the most helpful alternative?
Well, I liked using I would use a red marker and then just mark and just like kind of not too hard to make it where it would hurt me, but I would like do a marker or paint and put it on my wrist and like see, and that will like kind of, and where I can just wipe it off, so it's like that one where it's not permanent. And also the where you hold ice cubes in your hand and it's like you feel the pain, but it's like it's not permanent, and it's just like it's kind of just like a tension release.
Wow. Jasmine, want to respond to Angel and just respond to what you just heard or say anything to her?
Yeah, well, I really appreciate you, Angel, sharing and being so transparent and brave in sharing your story. I think that, like, yeah, it makes me feel sad to kind of remember also just being around people that like as a teenager, like being in the hospital with people that were trying to find anything that they could to, like, their self-saboteur was so strong that it didn't matter, like all they wanted was that. And it's just bringing it back for me, the memories of that. And it makes me sad, but also hopeful that, there is light at the end of the tunnel. And I think talking about it is the first step.
You both are really talking about it tonight.
Mhm.
Showing vulnerability is a good thing, and we try to fight through the obstacles. We're the obstacles upon ourselves unless we fight back within
We
ourselves.
did have one question from YouTube.
Sure.
I think this was for Angel. I
Okay.
think it came in a couple minutes, a minute or two ago.
Okay.
I think she meant when did it first start for Angel?
When did what start?
Yeah. What do they mean by that question?
I think she was talking about the self-harm.
Yeah. When did it start to really happen where you were really feeling the need to or desire to self-harm?
Well, I would do it like on and off, and originally it started when I was in 7th grade. But I've just been doing it like I was doing it on and off, and it started with cutting, but then it went to like where I would punch walls and like hurt like injury like on myself, like, and then but then like recently I stopped doing the punch walls, and I would try to hide any self-harm that I did. I would hide it. Like, I would make sure it was something that my parents wouldn't be able to see. And I was hiding it for a long time. And then recently I finally like spoke up, and I finally stopped. And once I told them, I finally stopped. Once I got off everything I was feeling and told them, it finally stopped.
I was going to ask. So, what's the turning point for? I'll start with you, Angel. What's been the turning point for you to in a healthier, more comfortable place?
The turning point was having people there that talking to people who've been through it before, and just talking to them and seeing how they dealt with it and how they coped. And then like finally like kind of making my own way of coping, and kind of doing, because some ways that others cope and it helps them doesn't help others. there was a while where I couldn't find something that helped me cope, and I would try something but it wouldn't work, and I would get mad, and then I would end up self-harming because I would get mad. And so once I found my way of coping and my own way of coping, it really helped me turn around and change for the better.
Creativity and the reaching out and the love from your family and allowing yourself to just be honest and real the way you're being with all of us tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And Jasmine and yourself, what was your turning point? Because there are a lot of things we haven't. I know you're working in the mental health field. I know you've had other issues and struggles, but I just wanted you to have an opportunity to tell us what was a turning point for you, and where
Yeah.
you are now and where you think you're going with all this and all your experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to pinpoint a time, it's what's not so black and white for me. I think that throughout my whole life, I've had setbacks, or like how Angel says hiccups, but like they kept, just because felt like I was getting better doesn't mean that I won't be triggered, or something will come up again, like an old wound. And I think that for me, recognizing now that I'm able to recalibrate so much faster than was before, like, if you're talking about self-harm or eating disorder behavior, I don't necessarily have to do that to come back to center, whereas before it might have been a slippery slope. So honestly, one of the turning points for me was doing CBT. Not, I think that therapy in general is really important, but doing CBT just for the disordered eating stuff was really, really helpful, just to identify my thoughts, separate from them, and notice, like, okay, I don't need to identify with my thoughts. And my thoughts are really out there and crazy. Like, everyone has crazy thoughts, but
For sure.
it's okay. You don't have to identify with them, and you're just looping. And so that was really helpful for me to move forward. And one of my, like I said, I don't think it's a linear process, but
No, it's definitely. I don't believe in linear. I think that life is non-linear, and it's a process, and it's a journey. We're all on it. And both of you are really brave to be even opening up this conversation, being on a journey, and so helpful. I think for me, I'm sure for you, Mike, too, to listen to this tonight, right?
Yeah, it was, I think it was a great conversation.
Amazing conversation, and I know for both of you, like you like where your life is going now, Jasmine. You have a partner that you're really comfortable with, and congratulations. I heard that that's going really well.
thank you.
And I think you're working in the mental health field now, aren't you? Are you
Well,
doing
no,
not specifically, but you're interested in that?
yeah.
What kind of things are you doing?
Yeah, so well, now I switched gears towards housing, which has been really rewarding. I mean, I think it's impossible to work on your mental health when you don't have your basic needs met. So that's why I switched gears, because so many people here in Oakland are houseless, and
You're
we
channeling.
can't expect
That's,
them to get better or work on themselves without having their basic needs met.
well, that's working on the mental health field.
Right.
That's when you talked about that earlier. The importance of the difference in socioeconomic status and racial issues and all those kinds of things. So there's
Right.
ways to build mental health, and that's a wonderful way for you to be building mental health. It's great. And how about you, Angel? You're in school.
Yeah.
You're 15 now, right? You're
16.
16.
Yeah,
Why
I'm
16?
16.
So what is a 16-year-old with your wisdom doing with that?
Well, right now I'm looking into colleges and stuff for after I graduate. I mean, I have a couple years because I'm a junior, but I like looking into colleges and kind of figure out where I want to go for after I graduate. And I'm having a lot of like turning points and amazing things happening in my family where it's helping my mental health and put behind me the trauma that I went through in the past.
So what are you doing in your family? What are you doing?
So recently I've been going through a bunch of stuff with my biological dad, and my family, like, I had accepted, and so was my mom and my stepdad, that I would never be able to, that he wasn't going to sign over his rights and everything. And we knew that because he still wanted me to be in his life. And so we recently found out that he doesn't need to adopt me to have my last name changed to his. And so we're starting to look, we're going to be doing that in a few weeks, where we're changing my last name to match my mom and my stepdad's. And so I know that's going to help me a lot. And so, and there's a lot of stuff because I have a dog, and so I love hanging out with him, and have I have some friends in my town that I like hanging out with, and even if one of my friends that aren't in my town, but he lives a while away, I still talk to him every day, and we're amazing. We've known each other for a long time, and so he really helps me.
Angel, I just have to say that
That's really
it's
cool.
very inspiring
Yeah.
that you
Wow.
came on and that you were inspired that from someone else's story inspired you to come tell your story. And I imagine that your story now will inspire other people to go on and help other people. I mean, it's all
Truly
pay
amazing.
it forward, and really, we all as a society and just need to help each other and uplift each other. And secondly, we are probably going to be having a pet show, and we're going to talk about how pets have a positive influence on our life.
Like that, Jasmine.
So
Huh?
we may, if you want, maybe you and your dog could come on that show as well.
Jasmine, you applauded. You have a pet too. You feel you'd like to.
Yeah, I have a dog. We just adopted a dog, and Walnut, he's so cute. And then in my household we have 4 cats.
That's really cool. And how about Angel with her family structure and restructuring her family in a way that she wants to work and get everybody peace? That's a nice message, isn't it? With family,
Definitely.
and to have an extended family and be able to find where you really need the support and the love, and arrange and take control of that for yourself is really impressive. So the last thing, because I could keep you guys on another hour, but I know probably everybody has other things to do. Just we always ask, Jasmine, what would be the one thing that you would want to tell people watching you tonight that they should get from tonight, or that you would want them to hear in terms of your story and opinion about what would be best for them around mental health?
Well, I like how you started that it's okay to not be okay, and important to be honest with yourself where you're at, and that's the first step. And then sharing your story is also, I think, initially a part of that. And I feel pretty inspired being here also.
Well, we're
myself.
inspired having you be here and sharing your story and finally meeting you. I've heard such wonderful things about you, and now I feel like we've met.
Yeah.
It's a special way to meet you. So I want to thank you so much for being on with us tonight. Really.
Thank you for having me.
And Angel, I love your name. I love Jasmine. I love Angel. I love jazz. I love Jasmine. I love Angel. So go ahead, your turn.
Yeah, yeah, being like also like Jasmine said, like it's okay not to be okay, and I like the like semicolon of like for like suicide awareness. I love that that like sign, because it like I've read somewhere where someone was saying that a semicolon is like in writers is when writers don't want to end a sentence. And so like having the semicolon as like for suicide awareness is like, we don't want you to end your life. So it's like, it's a nice like kind of thing. And I like always saying that your story isn't over yet, so don't end it. And so it's just, I always like when someone kind of communicates with me that of stuff that's going in their family, I always like to say that I'm always there for them, and that I can, like, I'm there to talk if they need it, because I know that I've been in like a difficult situation, and I know that I always like having people talk to me if they need it. And I always like feeling inspired by people when feel inspired by people when they reach out to ask for help, because I know it's a very hard thing.
Yeah, asking for help is a biggie. I have ADD. We had an ADHD show That was a lot of overlap, I think, with the ADHD show and this tonight. And just to tell you what I did, I wrote a book with my father. It's called The Inside Ride. My father was a psychiatrist, had a lot of issues with him. So one of the things I would encourage people to do is, if you can't verbalize it, write about it. Write a letter to somebody that you're struggling with, not just an email or a text, but write a letter. Have a conversation. We don't have enough conversations in America anymore. If you notice, it's a one-way street. Let's have dialogue like we have on Kids Are Talking. My dad and I had a dialogue, and fortunately, I don't have regrets. He passed away, but by writing that book, The Inside Ride, and The Inside Ride is what we're all on. We're all on the inside ride, taking a journey within ourselves. That book really, I think, has inspired people to, another way to deal with depression and anxiety is to write, another form of being creative.
Yeah.
Express your feelings, right, Mike?
Yeah, express just. I mean, I enjoy writing. I enjoy writing songs, and that was always my way.
Yeah, Mike wrote songs for our old show.
The problem is I used to write a lot of music, and a lot of it was really depressing. And my wife would say, "Why are your songs all depressing?" And then I realized after I got married, I stopped writing music because I wasn't depressed anymore. So my wife brought me so much joy. So.
She does bring him a lot of joy. They have one of the best marriages of any two people I've ever seen in my life. As a matter of fact, it's like the show teaches me a lot, and then having them behind the scenes teaches me a lot too, because we're all very close on Kids Are Talking, and we talk and we're open. And vulnerability, it's good to be vulnerable. It's good to tell your story, but it's also good to find the people that want to hear your story and are going to respect it and empathize with it. So again, I want to thank you both, Angel, Jasmine, Mike. Pretty good job these two people did, and of course Leighton as well.
Yeah.
Leighton feels like he's late now. He left us a long time ago, but Leighton also for his wonderful wisdom. And if you have a chance to, we hang out behind the stage after the show just to have a little farewell party discussion. If you want to do that, hang out backstage, and I'd like to just talk to you for a minute or two. And next week we're going to have another show on mental health, the effects of mental health. Continue, because we've been inspired tonight to continue this discussion and take it to other levels. And thank you to Kevin Love, Naomi Osaka, Simone Biles, and all the athletes now that are finally feeling comfortable enough to talk about mental health and be brave and courageous. And so I'm going to say goodnight, Mike.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
From all of us.
This was a great show. I think one of the best. They all keep getting better and better, and we're really digging deep and touching a lot of people. And I hope Angel has inspired me to just feel like we're inspiring people, and I hope that we were able to reach out and really tell everyone's story, all the kids' story, and have inspire other kids, inspire parents to understand their kids, inspire teachers to understand their students. And I apologize in advance we had a little technical glitch with Facebook today, but we were directing all the Facebook people over to YouTube. So anyone that wanted to see it on Facebook, we will post a replay there. And obviously they were able to hopefully watch it live on YouTube. And next week we should be back up and running, and we're going to have maybe a few people back and a few new people. And I'm excited. I think this is a continuing subject. And
as always, I say, let's get these two back at some point too, because anytime you could have Jazz or Jasmine and Angel on a show, what could be better than that, to have an Angel and Jazz in the background and hearing what they had to say, right?
I think that works. That works. So,
music and spirit.
Music and spirit. So from everybody, Kids Are Talking, thanks for watching. Have a good night.
Good night.